very important factors you need to consider. You probably haven't considered as a PhD. You've been spending a lot of your time doing academic presentations. You know the presentations where you talk about a lot of data, and you start with the data that probably matters the least, and then you build your case, and then you show the only real data that matters at the very end when everybody's asleep. You don't want to do that for your industry presentation. Some industry presentations are only 10 minutes, others are longer. Either way, you want to show the most important thing first. And you don't want it to be all about your data. Really, it needs to be about you, your strengths, your skills. Of course, you can tie your data into that. Very, very often during a site visit, what they'll say is, just present about you and something you're interested in. Just present about yourself and how you think you can help the company. That's all the direction you're going to get. And they just want to see how you handle yourself in a presentation. You really need to figure out a couple of things, the audience in that case, and some things we'll talk about at the top of the hour when we officially begin. So it's great to see all of you on. I'm going to introduce our team at the top of the hour. We're 6 minutes away from being live. If you're just joining us now, we're going to be talking about communication and building consensus in business. We have a variety of guests showing up. Let me just ask our members, are you seeing me okay? Are you hearing me okay? Are you seeing me on the big screen as the person who's speaking? Or are you seeing me small? You're seeing me, okay, so we're all set up well, perfect. Well, I'm going to change that up now, and I'm going to share my screen. So we have a special show-up bonus. We're going to be doing these new show-up bonuses every single show, and we close them after the show is over. Hence the name show-up bonus. If you want the bonus, you have to show up. So this is a special top 7 resume hacks for PhDs. You can get this download, and we have it set up so you get it automatically. It'll be sent to your email. All you have to do is go to this page, cheekyscientist.com/show-up-bonus-resume-hacks. There's a dash in between each of those words, so it's cheekyscientist.com show-up-bonus-resume-hacks. And you'll get this quick start guide that'll go through these hacks for you. If you scroll to the bottom of the page, you see the download now call to action. Put your name and email address, and you will get the free white paper. Really free quick start guide here. I think we can change the name of that button. But you can get this. The link is in the chat box here for those of you who are members. If you're watching us on our live stream on Facebook or YouTube, are we live on YouTube?
We are.
Hi YouTube, good to see you. Isaiah here with Cheeky Scientist. We're about to go live. We are live. We're about to start at the top of the hour, another Cheeky Scientist radio show. We are talking about building consensus and communication in business for PhDs. I have a lot of great guests on today we'll be talking about and introducing soon. And we have some other interesting things we're going to be discussing, not just communication, but really how to leverage and develop your transferable skills to get hired in industry. If you're on YouTube, you can get this show-up bonus as well. You should be able to see the screen here. We'll put it in the comment section on YouTube as well as Facebook. Again, this show-up bonus disappears after the radio show. We like to reward those of you who spend time with us live, so thank you for being here. We are 3 minutes from the top of the hour, and then we're going to get started. I'll introduce this show-up bonus 1 or 2 more times during the show, but this is your chance, if you're here early, to get it. Move some things around on my screen. I want to make sure I can see the chat box here. See a lot of our associates on. Thank you for joining. Galen, Fergus, good to see you on now too. Jan Meat, good to see you on. Creamy, good to see you on. Vanessa, good to see you on. Vanessa, aren't you supposed to be looking? Good to see you on as well. Donka, Aaron, hello. Thank you for joining. And looks like everybody, all the members in the chat box, good to see you. So if you're watching us on the live stream on Facebook or YouTube, we're going to get started in 2 minutes with Cheeky Scientist. This is another live radio show. While you wait, you can get this show-up bonus, top 7 resume hacks for PhDs. And we have a great show lined up. We are bringing on a very special guest. Well, of course, we're going to start with the Show Me the Data section. We like to talk about the data. I have a couple of articles I want to share with you and a job search tip that I want to discuss with you as well that has to do with presenting on a site visit. But then we're going to go into the Show Me the Data section. We're going to go from there to talking with Crystal Dilworth, who is a STEM PhD who now does something very interesting, a certain type of consulting. So we're going to talk with her We're going to specifically talk with her about how she's developed key transferable skills, communication. We're going to talk about building consensus, and her story is very, very interesting. It shows that you can do anything with a STEM PhD. After her, we're going to be talking with Jack O'Sullivan. He will be talking to us about his transition. He'll be talking to us about the types of careers that he's had and how he's leveraged his PhD background to get into technical sales positions that, again, a lot of us as PhDs don't think that we'd be a good match for or even enjoy, but you can, with your PhD, do anything. And really, that's the underlying point of today's show. Then for our members only section, we're going to be bringing on a special guest call-in to talk about a variety of things. It's during our members only portion, but we're going to be doing some LinkedIn reviews. For those of you who are associates, you'll get to be a part of that. We're going to do a special Stump Isaiah section where we're going to do some interview training based on how correctly or incorrectly I answer some interview questions. So stay tuned for that if you are a member, and if you're interested in becoming a Cheeky Scientist Associate, getting access to all of our members only materials, including our members, our PhD network, job referral network, just go to phdsgethired.com and you can sign up there to learn more about the association. We are at the top of the hour. Welcome to another Cheeky Scientist radio show. This is where PhDs go to learn how to transition in industry and how to get promoted and set themselves up for success in industry over the long term. How can you get into a job that leverages your technical skills, but also the transferable skills you have, maybe even if you don't realize it? You're going to learn about that here. Today's show is specifically on building consensus and communication in business for PhDs. So being able to rally people around your ideas and your plans for action is crucial. In industry, very often they call this cross-functional collaboration. It is crucial that you understand these topics, that you can discuss them, that you realize that you have them right now, right? A lot of you have managed people in projects, even if you don't think about it like that. As a PhD, you've done this in the lab, you've done this in the classroom. It's important for you to understand how to speak about these things, how to leverage them to get into positions that set you up for success, not just in an entry-level position, but in management. Okay, this is a place where PhDs are actually treated in a way that reflects what they are worth. Okay, you are worth more than working for a third of what you get paid in industry. Okay, you're worth more than being treated essentially like an indentured servant in academia. So if you have a feeling that maybe there's something more out there for you, maybe you're tired of academia for whatever reason, maybe you are currently unemployed, maybe you're a postdoc, this is the radio show for you. We have a great show lined up. We're going to go through a Show Me the Data section. I'm going to take care of a couple of housekeeping items first, and then we're bringing on Crystal Dilworth, who's going to talk to us about how she leveraged her PhD background, her STEM PhD background, to do a very interesting type of consulting that deals with communication and transferable skills that you have likely developed as well. And we want to show you that you can use your PhD to do anything here. And we're going to be talking a lot about communication, a lot about building consensus, a lot about transferable skills. We're going to bring on Jack O'Sullivan as well, who has a PhD background, is now working in technical sales. He has a great transition story to share. And again, we want to show you that with your PhD, you can do whatever you want. I do want to mention, for those of you who have come on, you see my screen here. This is our special show-up bonus for you, top 7 resume hacks for PhDs. If you go to this URL before the end of the show, you get this gift for free. Why? Because you joined us live. But after the show, this disappears. You can't get it. Hence the name show-up bonus, top 7 resume hacks for PhDs. Just put in your name and email, and you will get that for free. All right, so one thing I wanted to talk about today is IQ. Right, as PhDs, maybe we don't realize it, maybe we've forgotten, but you're pretty smart, right? Just because you're surrounded by other PhDs who are constantly pressing their fields forward, who are obsessing with discovery, who are concerned about their careers, who are exceptionally driven, who are expert problem solvers, maybe you started thinking that there's nothing really special about you. Maybe you have forgotten that less than 2% of the population has a PhD, and that you are rare indeed. Maybe you have forgotten that simple things like comprehension, right, is something that not everybody's able to do, right? Identifying the right problem to solve, finding the right solution to that problem. These are all values that you have, and they are exceptionally rare, right? Go a few blocks to the left or right of your university or institution, all of a sudden you're not surrounded by a bunch of other PhDs, and you can see, oh, certain things that I've been working on day in and day out have set me apart, right? My ability to use logic, right? My ability to use my intellect, my ability to comprehend things. And this is highly valuable to you. So if you've forgotten, I want to remind you that you are very intelligent, and that in itself is a key transferable skill that can help you get hired. Your ability to learn quickly is a key transferable skill. You're probably not talking about it on your resume, you're probably not talking about it when you network, you're probably not talking about it on phone screens and interviews, but you need to start. Remember, PhDs are doctors of philosophy. That means you are a doctor of knowledge and the ability to ascertain knowledge. What does ascertain mean? It's a fancy way of saying, hey, you're a doctor of learning, right? So IQ matters. I love this article here. Now, some people have a hard time with this article. The article is called Why IQ Matters More Than Grit, because they think that, oh, hard work doesn't matter. Hard work matters, but it's not a substitute for doing things intelligently or correctly. And why am I telling you this? Because even as a PhD, you can fall into the trap of thinking, well, I just need to work harder. I just need to do more of this. I'm not successful, so I'll do more of it. Example, uploading resumes. I'm guessing a lot of you have uploaded hundreds of resumes, still haven't been hired. And you think, well, I just need to upload 1,000 resumes. That's the ticket. Okay, that's not using your intellect. That's just thinking, oh, grit or hard work is going to get me ahead. No, you have to think logically. Sometimes this means zooming out and being strategic. You have this capability. You likely apply it to your overall thesis, your work, etc., but you're not applying it to your job search. Don't make the mistake of thinking that hard work or grit is somehow going to replace doing things correctly, doing things intelligently. Also, I like this article here. This is from Inc., but it's referencing an article, an actual study that's on PubMed, which is at the bottom here, which I'll open up. Emotional intelligence in search for an elusive construct. Emotional intelligence, if you dig into the science, doesn't really exist. It's really just IQ, okay? EQ is really just IQ. So if you're able to understand, right, what other people want or thinking, or can logically put together frameworks of how people work well together, in today's world we call that emotional intelligence, but really it's just intelligence, IQ. And people who have high EQ actually just have high IQ. Okay? What does this mean for you? It means that you might think of yourself as somebody who just is intelligent, just has high IQ because you're a PhD, and you don't understand this emotional part, this messiness. You can't network. You can't build relationships. It's just not you. Not true. If you're intelligent, you can do those things. You just have not been applying your intellect to that realm of your life, to that realm of your career, and you need to, because, as you hear us talk a lot about, networking, getting job referrals is the key to getting hired into a PhD level job, because nobody wants to hire you based on your resume. Nobody wants to pay you the industry average for PhDs of over $91,000 a year because of a piece of paper. They need to have somebody else vouch for you, which means you need to have a network. You need to build a network up of people in industry, and that's something that we focus a lot on because our association, the Cheeky Scientist Association, is the world's largest job referral network for PhDs, specifically populated by PhDs. So check out these articles. Don't discount yourself in terms of having emotional intelligence, of being able to navigate relationships, professional or otherwise, being able to leverage these things to get hired. We're going to be talking a lot about topics that are similar to this, communication, building consensus, on today's radio show. Now, one thing I wanted to show you here as well, let me see if I still have it pulled up. Maybe I closed it. Find it real quick. There it is. Okay, so we do have a Cheeky Scientist blog. Easy to find too, cheekyscientist.com/blog. Shows you our top 10 trending articles. This one has been at the top for, I don't know, like 3 weeks now. This is one of our previous radio shows. So what we do is we take the highlights of these radio shows, we put them on our podcast on iTunes, so you can go to iTunes and subscribe to our podcast. We also put them every Friday in a blog article where you can see the highlights of the video, you can listen to the audio, you can actually read through the transcript of the interviews. We have all of that for you on our blog, so just go to cheekyscientist.com blog. We also put out specific articles such as this one, 5 Things PhDs Need to Know About Onboarding After Getting Hired. We all obsess about getting our first job, but what happens after you get hired? Don't leave it as some black box, right? Demystify it. We'll help you here. Check out these other articles. And we always take all of the best articles relating to industry, current industry trends, things as specific as resumes, LinkedIn, etc. Everything from the internet, the best of. And we put it into a best of this week article for you. So the only place that you have to come is right here, cheapastscientist.com/blog. Okay, now, previously, only our members, our associates, have been able to see this slide. It might be a little small for you, but hopefully you can see it okay. And this is a slide in a presentation specifically from one of our experts on giving presentations during site visits. And I wanted to talk about some of these takeaways because so many PhDs go into a site visit presentation and give their academic presentation. And they bomb it, they don't get hired, and they wonder what happened. Like, I practiced this so many times, I've lived and breathed this data. They're not looking for the same kind of presentation that you would give in academia. Okay, so in an industry presentation, right, where you're interviewing, you're on a site visit, you're selling yourself, not your research, right? So it's not about your data. You can show some data, that's great, but the data needs to be relevant to you, how you're going to fit into that position, and the future, where you're headed, not what you've done in the past. That is crucial. Do not present your dissertation presentation, okay? This should be a separate presentation, mostly just big images. Like, at the most, one big, easy to understand figure on the slide, or just an image of something, like an image of you doing something fun too. Give a little bit of your background, right? Help people get to understand who you are on a more personal level, and then also talk about what you have accomplished professionally that's relevant to what you need to accomplish at that company, right? So we've been using this phrase a lot: future-facing. Make the presentation future-facing. Don't do what I said earlier, for those of you that were here before we started at the top of the hour. Don't do the academic presentation where you show the data that's the least important at the beginning, when everybody's actually paying the most attention, and you slowly build to the most important piece of data at the very end, right? And your last slide's the most important piece of data with all your conclusions right after everybody's already asleep. Okay? Don't bury the lead. The lead being the most important thing you need to show, talk about that up front. The very first slide should be the most important thing, the main theme, the main takeaway. Engage them right away. And usually it's going to be a 10-minute presentation with very little guidance. The hiring manager will say, oh, we're just going to have you present about yourself for 10 minutes. And you're like, okay, what does that mean? What do I do? So most of us do what we're most comfortable with, and we just take slides from our dissertation or the most recent academic presentation that we've given. Don't do that. This entire training, which is part of our association training materials here, will go into exactly what you need to present, but I want all of you, even if you're not an associate, to know that you can't give your same academic presentation. Do not data drop, right? So again, use your data very selectively to demonstrate the skills that you need, that are needed for the position you want to get into, okay? Always keep it future-facing. Demonstrate problem-solving ability. So this is important. Show, don't tell. Don't tell them you're a great problem solver. Show them a problem that you solve. Again, that's relevant to problems you will need to solve at the company. Okay, do you see a theme here, the future-facing theme? When it comes to problem solving, walk them through your thought process, your actions that led you to solving the problem. This is very, very important in interviewing overall. And make everything clean, concise. We all know in academia that it just seems to be okay to have a slide with like 15 figures, and the more complicated the figure, the more intelligent you seem. No, realize that in a site visit, you're going to have, very likely, you're going to have not just scientists and PhDs there, or engineers, technical people, but you're also just going to have people from HR, people from other parts of the company that came because there was a flyer put up somewhere. Okay, so it's going to be a very different audience. Pay attention to your audience, not just your purpose. All right, so speaking of audience, we don't just have people watching here. We have team members that make this radio show possible, and I want to take a minute to introduce them. We have on with us, who's first? Mary. Mary came on first. Hi, Mary. How are you? You're mute. You're silent. Or am I just? Oh no. I think. Can everybody hear Mary?
Hello?
There we are. I can hear you now. Hi, Mary. How are you?
I'm great. How are you, Isaiah?
Good. Thank you for your help setting this up. So Mary does this incredible show flow for us so that I can actually stay on track during the radio show and I don't talk for 10 minutes on some random article like I just did. So it works pretty well most of the time. But thank you, Mary. Good to see you. Please thank Mary in the chat box for her help with today's show. I want to bring on Lisa too. Hi, Lisa. How are you?
Hi, I'm good.
So Lisa is the face behind all of the rapid fire answers in all of the chat boxes and the comment boxes everywhere. So make sure you say hi to Lisa, please. And Lisa, thank you for your help.
Oh, no keep me on my toes.
Good, good. I be careful what you wish for or are happy about. I will continue to do that. So good to see you on, Lisa. Thank you. And Jeanette, I'm going to bring you on in a second, but we're going to go on to show me the data, so I'll wait for that. I want to say I'm going to surprise Cheney over here, who makes the live action stuff possible here. I don't know if you can see Cheney. I can see Cheney here. Cheney, come over here. Their camera's here. I'm still teaching you where the cameras are. Okay. So, yeah. Well, some more training still recorded. So that's part of the team. Of course, we have a lot of other team members that make today's show possible. Very excited about today because we have great guests lined up. Before we bring our special guests on, though, we like to do a special section that we call Show Me the Data. And the team member who makes this possible is Jeanette McConnell. How are you, Jeanette? Do I have to give you?
Hello. I'm good.
There we go. Good to see you. Nice bow tie. Green today. It's a one color bow tie, so you're serious today. This must be
Very
serious.
serious.
This must be serious today. Okay, let me open up the Show Me the Data section. I was really excited to talk about today's data because I think it's aligned with two things. One, your job search, and two, with the interviews we're going to be doing later here. So let me share my screen. Please do me a favor in the chat box and let me know if you can see the data, and we'll talk about it. Okay, looks like we're good to go. So I'm going to describe what this data is for everyone listening to us by audio only, and then Jeanette, you can walk us through what the conclusions are and what we're actually showing here, because Jeanette's much smarter than I am. All right, so the key attributes employers seek on students' resumes. This is from the National Association of Colleges and Employers. And what are we looking at? We're looking at these attributes, right? So what are employers looking for on resumes? So on the left column, this is a table, left column, we have attributes. Right column, percentage of respondents. So Jeanette, the respondents are the employers in this case, is that correct?
That's correct.
And it's just ranking the attributes that they want to see the most.
Yeah, they had to see the ones they value the most. That was the question. What do you value the most on a resume?
And what's number one?
Problem-solving skills.
Problem-solving skills. So what does that mean, though? Like everybody can solve a problem. Like, how do I open this door? Like, people can figure that problem out. But what is this? What are people really looking for when you say problem solving?
They're looking to see if you can work through a problem from beginning to end without help, right? Can you take on a project and then hit those barriers and overcome them, and just get to the solution without needing lots of help along the way? I mean, everybody needs help sometimes, but like, can you work through those problems? That's what it means. And I always used to say that getting a PhD is like getting a degree in troubleshooting. That is like what you do, and that's what problem solving is.
Yeah, and I really like how you broke that down. A degree in troubleshooting. Yeah, that's a good way to say it, because there's this misconception where problem solving is just like, oh, I can solve this problem because I'll just ask whoever for help. No. Employers don't want to help you. Okay, they don't want to babysit or micromanage. We hear about those words, and we know that is the exact opposite of what they're looking for. And then why do they like PhDs so much? Is because you can be given a project, and then you have this level of autonomy where you're able to figure out the solution on your own. And I always remember, like my first year of graduate school, I would go to my PI to ask him every single question. I'd ask him a question, and then he would just say, hold on a sec, and he would do a Google search on his computer, right, like a protocol or whatever, and then he'd find the answer, and then he'd tell me the answer. And I think he did this on purpose, and after like the 50th time, I was like, wait a second, I can just do the search on Google, or I could just pick up the phone and call him. And it was like this massive aha moment, and as PhDs, we think that everybody has this skill set. They don't. And we forget to mention problem-solving skills on our resume, etc. And we actually forget how valuable it is, because we reduce it down to being able to do what people tell us. That's not problem-solving. It's really being able to figure out and troubleshoot on your own, like Jeanette said. So great analysis there. So, okay, what's next? You have a couple items circled here. What are they and why?
Yeah, so I circled the ones that were about communication because they both fall into the top half. More than 50%, more than 60% of the employers are saying that those are really valuable. Where communication skills, your written communication skills, 80.3% of employers said those were very valuable to have on your resume, to make obvious through your resume.
Yeah.
And then also communication verbally, 67.5% of employers said that was very valuable on a resume.
Yeah, and so think about things in terms of projects that need to be managed, especially in companies that are, I mean, think of a company with 1,000 people, right? I mean, you're going to have some people working on site at one location, some people in the field. You're going to have virtual communication channels, direct communication channels. The key is communication has to happen quick and effectively. Can you do it? As PhDs, you do have written communication skills, verbal, but are you actually thinking to put that on your resume, or are you just using like your big technical words? Okay, just putting these two things are crucial because employers, they just want to know that, hey, you can problem solve to get stuff done on your own, but you can also communicate effectively when needed. I think that's the overall summary here. What are some of the other ones that are on the list here, Jeanette, that stick out to you?
Yeah, well, there's one about working on a team, right? Which is really important as a PhD. You have to work with people all the time, so we've got those skills, but it's important to highlight them. Leadership, right? Your strong work ethic, and then I think it's interesting too if you look down a little bit, like less than 60% of people have technical skills on there, right? So they're important. Clearly, you need to have the right technical skills, but they weren't as important as your communication skills.
Yeah, I love that. So the technical skills are below problem solving. Team, working with a team, communication, leadership, work ethic, initiative, detail-oriented, flexibility. So if you're thinking your technical skills are what are going to get you hired, no, don't forget those other 10 or so items that are above it. Crucial. And there's a difference between having effective communication skills and being liked by everybody. I just wanted to point this out, okay? What's at the bottom of this list? Tactfulness. Friendly, outgoing personality. So as PhDs, we discount ourselves because, like, well, I'm not the friendliest person. Not everybody likes me. Okay, but are you capable? Can you communicate effectively? Can you get the job done? Doesn't mean you're a jerk, of course, but don't discount yourself just because you're not the most popular person in the room. What do you think, Jeanette?
Yeah, totally.
Thank you. Thank you for agreeing. All right, so with the popular opinion. All right, so the second figure is the growing importance of social skills in the labor market. So speaking of social skills, and I really like these two figures coming up. So this is from the Quarterly Journal of Economics. Who cares about the volume number? Not me. The number of jobs requiring these skills. That's what this graph is showing on the y-axis. It goes from, well, I guess from 0 up to 0.05, with zero is in the middle. So you're looking at a negative 0.05 and a positive 0.05 above that. And on the x-axis, it goes from 1980, right? So it's a date to all the way to a little after 2010. And so you have 4 different colored bars in this graph. One is blue, it's high social, high math. One is green, low social, high math. One is red, high social, low math. One is yellow, low social, low math. So you can probably understand just from that what we're looking at here. But can you give us some context about this study, Jeanette, and walk us through which bar is the highest and why?
Yeah, of course. So this study looked at the changes, this particular figure looked at the changes in the number of jobs in each of these categories from 1980, it's actually until 2012. And so they compared what they called high social jobs, right, which is pretty obvious, where you need social skills to do them, like communicating well, right? Those sort of interactive skills are really important. And then high math, which they gave a couple of examples of these, what they meant by this career, and they were like STEM jobs.
Yes.
like all these things that STEM PhDs are looking to get hired into these positions, right?
Yes.
And so at this graph, you can see that the blue line, which is those high social, high math jobs, so things where you need both your STEM expertise and the ability to communicate and be like effective socially,
Yes.
grew the most, where you're seeing a 7.2% increase in the number of those jobs.
Yeah.
Right, and it's really interesting to compare that to the other like high math, low social, right? That's the other one that you, as a STEM PhD, that you would be targeting if you wanted a job where you didn't have to interact with people or something.
Yeah.
Don't really exist, but that one only grew by 4.6%. Right, so you're seeing that there's more growth in these positions where you have to combine the two skills.
Yeah, and let me just simplify. So both of the high social ones, whether it's high math or low math, have increased dramatically. Both of the low social ones, whether it's high math or low math, have decreased dramatically. Okay, so what does that mean for you? It means like you have to develop this social side of the equation. And mostly you just don't do it not because you don't have the skills, just because you think sometimes it's beneath you, or it's not important, or you should be honored just for your technical expertise. Sorry, it doesn't exist. Look at all the jobs that are really hot for PhDs now: medical science liaison, right? Regulatory affairs, medical writing, data scientist. All these positions require a heavy social component of working with internal teams and also being very client-facing to get the data from the clients, from the KOLs, the key opinion leaders. So great stuff there. And then there's a similar chart here where the title is Wages for Jobs Requiring These Skills. So what about wage growth, Jeanette?
Yeah, so that you see a similar trend, right? Where the jobs that require you to have high math or high STEM skills and excellent social skills, the wages for those positions are increasing way more than the other types of jobs, right? So you can see that blue line where there's been a 26% increase in the salary for these positions that require high math and high social skills, right? That's incredible. And then if you compare that to the positions that are low social skills but high math, they've only increased by 5.9%. So it's so much less and so much lower. So those jobs there's not as many of them that are open, and you're going to get paid less.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really important to use and leverage the communication skills that you do have, so that you can get into these positions where you're combining your skills and getting paid more. It's just better.
Yeah, no, I agree. And what the key takeaway here is that whether it was high social high math or high social low math, it was about 26% increase. So what you can take away here is that the math didn't really matter. If it was a high social position, there was about a 6% increase in wages. That's how important it is. And so again, especially for PhDs, you have the PhD, you have that rubber stamp of having technical skills or being able to learn the technical skills. And we hear that over and over. Do you have the transferable skills, the communication skills, the social skills to function on a team without being the awkward person in the corner? You do. It's just an active decision that you have to make to not be that person and to be the social person. It doesn't mean, again, you have to be Mr. Popular or Mrs. Popular or any other, kind of a fake person. You just have to realize that communicating effectively is important, and you have to do it. Make a decision to do it. That's really the takeaway here. So last figure, Jeanette, we're looking at horizontal bar graphs here. What do employers want in a new hire? Mostly good speaking skills. That's the title. And what we're looking at here is very important skills for recent graduates we are hiring. And dark blue is business executives, what their feedback is, and then light blue is hiring managers, what their feedback is. And the different categories are able to effectively communicate orally, critical thinking, analytical reasoning, ethical judgment and decision making, able to work effectively in teams, able to work independently, self-motivated, able to communicate, can apply knowledge and skills to real-world settings. What are the trends that matter here?
Yeah, so I think my big takeaway from this one is that all of these skills sort of matter a lot, right? So you really need to have and be presenting the various sides of yourself in your job search, right, on your resume and in your interview. Make sure you show that you can do different things.
Yes.
But it's really clear that the ability to communicate effectively orally was the most important, right? 90% of those hiring managers said that that's what they want. That's what's so important, is that you can communicate well when you speak. And then the other ones that were pretty high up there, with 87% of those hiring managers saying that they're very important, were ethical judgment and decision making, which I think as PhDs we stress over that way more than most people do. We realize those ethical considerations are just really important in academia, so we know how to think like that. And then working effectively in teams, which we saw before. And then the very last one I really like is the ability to apply knowledge and skills to your real world setting. And so this is something that we talk about a lot with resumes, and making sure that they're results oriented, right? So you're showing that your skills that you have can apply to their company,
Yes.
in a very specific way.
Yeah, and I love that, right, for PhDs, because we know that we're usually being trained on just generating knowledge, right? Not applying it. Very little that's translational. So a big step you have to make, and something you'll get asked about a lot on interviews, etc., is how can you take what you've done in academia and use it to help us, whether it's taking your knowledge and turning it into a product, or leveraging that knowledge to make their product better, to help them sell their product, etc. And so that is a crucial one. And yeah, oral communication, think about it. With all of the with technology and bots and automation, the written piece, right, with Siri on your phone, whatever it is, right, the written communication, I think, will go down over time, but the ability to speak orally effectively will not, and really has not since, well, I mean, ancient philosophers have been dated, right? I mean, it's going to be valuable forever because it's uniquely human. And I don't want to get into like an AI argument here, but I think it'll be the last to go. So practice your oral communication skills. This is very important if you're in a lab by yourself all day long and you say about 100 words per week. We've actually had somebody say that to us. That's not a lie. If that's you, go out, practice talking, right? Practice presenting, join the Toastmasters. It is...
Do some informational interviews.
Do some informational interviews, thank you.
Yeah.
We have an ebook on that, informational interviews, for free, so check that out. And Jeanette, thank you very much. Good to see you and your bow tie.
Thank you.
Have a great day. Sure, I'll see you again soon. Okay, so we're going to move forward now with our first interview. I'm very excited to bring on Crystal Dilworth. I'm going to go over her bio here, and we're really, really excited to have her on because she has a PhD in molecular neuroscience from Caltech. She is the co-founder of the Nerd Brigade, great name, an organization of award-winning science communications and edutainers. I've never heard that word. I love it. Edutainers working to diversify the face of science in mainstream media worldwide. Her career in science communication has launched with the delivery of a TEDx talk called The Myth of the Scientist, and her casting in the PhD movie and the PhD movie 2, still in grad school. I haven't seen these, I'll have to check them out. These projects provided a visible platform from which she continues to be a vocal advocate for STEM literacy and gender equity and inclusion. As a consultant, Crystal works with clients across all fields to break down barriers presented by technical jargon. I love it. We talk a lot about this, right? She especially enjoys working with early-stage startup founders to facilitate dialogue, build consensus, and ultimately create accurate and effective communication strategies involving science, technology, engineering, and math, also known as STEM. And I'm going to show, Crystal, I'm going to show your LinkedIn before I bring you on here. I'll keep the build-up going. So this is Crystal's LinkedIn page. You can go here, connect with her. I need to connect with her as well. And you can check out her page. I think we have a website too. Her video is in this the summary section on our LinkedIn page. And you can see where she's a consultant with Cresso Inc. Am I saying that right, Crystal?
Yeah, I work with Cresso here in the States,
Cresso.
and then with a company called Neuropower in Brisbane, Australia.
Neuropower. I love all of these names. Neuropower, Nerd Brigade.
Yeah.
So great to have you on. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
Where are you located?
I'm in San Francisco right now. I live in the Los Angeles area and pretty much airports around the world.
Nice. That's
Yeah.
That can be fun. I mean, sometimes, for a period of time, the recycled air can you can get used to that and enjoy the
I'm
travel.
a hopeless travel addict. Like if I've been home for 2 weeks, I start to worry that I'm never going to get on a plane again.
Am I stuck here forever? Yeah, that's how I felt in grad school. So
Yeah, exactly.
how did you? So my first question is: you used to be a professional dancer, yes?
Yes.
So how
Yes.
did you make the decision to go from that career to being a scientist? Slightly different, most would say.
Well, I cheated a little. I was a professional modern dancer with a bachelor's degree in biochemistry.
Ah, okay. That's
So science stayed with me as I grew up because my parents were scientists and they didn't understand that artist thing, and they wanted me to be able to have a real job. So I did the professional dancer in New York, artist, bohemian life, but I wasn't fulfilled intellectually.
okay.
And I started skipping my dance classes to go uptown to Columbia and sit in the chemistry department seminars.
Wow.
Like, can you imagine, like voluntarily going to a seminar and not for the free pizza? This is what I was doing.
So what were the different sides of you, or the different needs that you had that were being filled by dance versus science?
I mean, the sort of creative expression, the lyrical nature to kind of embrace movement and music and creativity was something that I always had. I was a very theatrical kid. I subjected my parents and family to multiple one woman shows and reenactments. This was like just part of who I was. But my parents wanted to develop the intellectual side very, very early. I was homeschooled, so I was very accelerated. I started junior college when I was 11. I just didn't know that that wasn't a thing that everybody else did, because I had a group of 4 other really accelerated homeschooled kids, and there was all of us with our little backpacks and the junior college, and we just sort of thought that was normal. So I was always balancing art, science, and science. And finally, I think that life of being just a dancer, where you're told what to do, you are a vessel for somebody else's creative, impulses, be the choreographer or the director, and you're not thought to be educated or, have thoughts to yourself. So there's only so many times you can hear things that are wrong about nutrition or physiology or things like that, and you're just kind of like, I need to go somewhere where people understand me, and of course that's Columbia University's chemistry department.
Of course, that makes perfect sense. So what I love about this, and for those of you listening or watching, you're thinking, okay, I'm not a dancer, I can't relate to this. I guarantee you there's some form of creative expression that you're engaging in right now. And maybe it's a hobby, right? Maybe you go somewhere and meet with friends to do X, Y, Z. Maybe you're part of a fiction book club, right? Maybe you like, I had someone that was in my graduate school entering class that liked to paint, right? Something like that. Maybe just writing, even if you're writing about science, it's a form of creative expression because you're telling a story. This is a very valuable skill set. And before we dig into that, I do want to hear about what do you do now, Crystal? What is this? What is consulting, right? It seems elusive. Can you elaborate?
I would love to elaborate. I'm gonna take a step back, and then I promise you that we'll get there. When I talk to the senior undergrads at Caltech that are thinking about applying for graduate school, I tell them that the most important thing that they can do is have something that's not related to their work that they continue doing, and to make sure that wherever they choose to go, they can find that, be it a dance studio, a tennis court, or whatever. Because when their research fails, not if, when, because we've all been there, right? That I don't want them to feel like their life has failed. They don't have anything else. And so I did that wrong. I started grad school thinking I was divorcing performing arts. I was going to be the best scientist I could ever be. That lasted for about 2.5 years. And then the PhD movie came along and changed my life, because I found that performing arts bit. And in doing that, I started choreographing musicals at Caltech. So scientists and engineers that have never danced, probably don't sing, some of them have never been on stage before, and they come to do this thing because it's completely different from their daily work. And I can talk to both sides. So I have the really artsy actor, director on one side. He speaks in word clouds. There's no structure. It's very conceptual and woo-woo. And you have Caltech and NASA scientists and engineers on the other side who respond to that lack of structure with fear, with anger, and with panic. And so even though I was the choreographer, my real role was to take the crazy, translate it into structure, and give it to the scientists and engineers, and then to take their concerns back and to mold it into a more fluid, experimental language that our actor director could say, oh, they're engaging with me on the creative process. This is exactly what I do in consulting.
And let me make this practical for those of you listening. The crazy director that she's talking about, hiring managers, okay? A lot of them are crazy, the recruiters, whatever. And if you've ever sat and talked to a hiring manager on a phone screen, whatever, and they're talking about the weather and telling you this story about what they did that day, and you're as a PhD, you're like, what are the facts? Like, what do you want me to say? What's the answer? What's the question? Right? You have to be able to deal with that, and you have to be able to bridge that gap on your own when you can't have, a Crystal with you on the phone or during the interview. But you can learn that from a Crystal. You can learn that by practice, right? So these scientists, these people from Caltech, how would you train them to be able to deal? I would say, for me, it's not. Anger is probably the right word. It's just like impatience. How would you train them to deal with that and to process this nonsense word cloud into something that made logical sense for them, or how would you help them understand it? How would you bridge that gap?
Part of it is reframing the problem, because they come to rehearsal thinking you're the director, you know what's going on, and I'm learning, and you're going to tell me what to do. And that's not what the arts is. It's a collaborative and creative process. So upskilling really quickly to a point where they're able to contribute collaboratively. They understand the space. So helping them map the space. This is what the director is thinking about and the things that he's managing. These are really smart people. They manage projects for NASA. They've put robots on other planets. So if you tell them all the different levers and all of the different things that they can start thinking about, they'll have ideas. And making sure that those ideas are heard is really the first step to them feeling competent in the space, and that reduces the emotional reactivity.
So you basically empower them and you give them a sense of ownership over the process, right? So they're not thinking that they're doing something wrong or they're incompetent or waiting, whatever. So you just provide clarity and you provide ownership.
And they know where the boundaries are and where they aren't. So in a similar way, if I'm working with a highly technical startup founder that is incredibly nervous or resistant to working with a PR or marketing firm, they're VC, that their major funder has told them, hey, you're going to work with this firm. They see a bunch of slick, fast-talking guys in suits that don't know anything about their technical product. This is their baby that's being dressed up like a clown and put out on a stage to tap dance, and they're very, very emotional about
Dancing
that.
bear.
Yeah. So if you can define a few parameters, a few ways that they could communicate, or a few flags that they can put in the sand and be like, this isn't moving and this isn't moving, and we respect that. Now let's talk about this creative space in between. They feel a little bit protected by the structure.
So how can we apply that to a job search or an industry career? Because you have a lot of people with your background, STEM PhD, and they're going in and they feel like they are that dancing bear, right? Where they have to, okay, now I got to put on this face and be nice and be more patient with all this stuff I don't care about. I got to do these networking events, etc. How do you put in a framework that allows them to stay true to who they are, right? Plant those flags, like you say. What's the space in between in this case? How would you frame it?
I think that, it's the theme of the episode, so I'm going to stick with the answer on the communications side. Things that we are not trained to do in grad school: manage people, manage money, bear the burden of communicating impact and value of our work. Things that we will be asked to do in the workplace as PhDs: manage people, manage money, bear the burden of communicating the impact and the value of the things that we do. And so that's the first skill that we really need to kind of to learn. And sometimes it's trial and error, but taking the time to think, if I'm not making my point correctly, what does the other person need from me? And even asking them, I feel like I'm not actually able to get the point across to you. Where are you struggling? And engaging with them on a human level instead of the sort of adversarial or even transactional level that you would have if you were giving a professional academic talk. Everybody's sort of in the same level, and now we're going like this. That's not the same. You don't understand business process, and they don't understand the 6 years of whatever it is you did. So you both have to find common ground, and accepting that going into the interaction, I think, is the first step.
So how can you set the tone for that before you have the conversation or before you even go on an interview with somebody? Like, what kind of prompts could you give them if you sense that maybe an interview is going south and they're starting to see you as just like a lab rat or a technical person? What are some key phrases you can use to open up the dialogue with the person on the other side of the table?
I always make sure to ask people-related questions. So on the, I actually want to answer that in two ways. So on the technical side, I sort of think, what are the questions that my family would have at the Thanksgiving table about my work? Because that might be the starting point for the hiring manager. So I had a friend that studied crater formation on the moon, and she always hated going home for Thanksgiving because people were asking her about exoplanets, dark matter, all of these other crazy things. And her first step to her family was like, actually, I only study our moon, and narrowing that down. And she can talk about how her research applied to these other things, but she was an expert in that one thing.
And they're like, oh, just the moon? Okay.
Well, the moon is really cool, right? You start to talk and tell lots of stories about the moon, and bring other people on board with the things that you've been working on. And that's the thing, the narrative around people. So how has your work touched people? My expertise is in the molecular basis of nicotine dependence. I'm a fluorescence microscopist. I shoot lasers at stuff that glow in the dark and I take pictures of them. How can that apply to people? Well, smoking is the #1 cause of preventable death in the world. So starting from that place and then moving back to the single atom substitution and the single subunit of the single pentameric receptor that's expressed in a very, very small subset of brain regions. Like, let's,
Yes. So I
tell
love
me
that.
why I care first.
Yeah, and so what Crystal's very, very intelligently talking about is pitching yourself, like pitching your idea, what you do, and you start at a much higher level, right? Get them engaged with a high level connection that's interesting, shooting lasers at, antibodies, whatever it is, right? Fluorochromes, etc. That's like, oh, wow, that sounds cool. I know what lasers are, and then there's this word I kind of know from the context. Don't jump into the weeds, which is what most of us do as PhDs, even on our resumes, right? Don't jump into the weeds of what you do about the single receptors, etc. They're going to go to sleep. But if you start high level, dig in, that's a much better pathway to follow, especially on an interview with a hiring manager who doesn't have a PhD.
I've been out of grad school for a long time, for 5 years now. I just had my 5th doctorversary, and I am still impressed about how much I need to take a step back and say, okay, actually, we need to talk about this concept in order to understand what I want to talk about. I still get caught up with that, even though I'm working in that space every day.
Doctorversary, I never heard of that. That's great. So let me talk a little bit more about what you do. So you have this background in neuroscience, right? Molecular neuroscience, and now you're collaborating on communication, behavioral type projects, etc. What allows you to do that? What are the key transferable skills that you got, especially with your STEM background or your dancing background, etc., that have allowed you to switch gears, that have allowed you to jump into different realms and apply your knowledge anywhere to anything?
I want this answer to be really profound, but it's going to be disappointingly plebeian. I think that one, the PhD and the PhD from Caltech gets me in the door. When you're talking to a CEO of one of a major international company, Fortune 500 company, they want to know that they're worth the attention of one of the top minds, and that's how my consulting firm would bill me. So I've done nothing except graduate, and there's a dollar value on that. Like, just keep that in mind for all of you out there. I'm getting my project manager in the door because he can say, I've got a top neuroscientist on my team. That's what my degree is doing. I haven't even opened my mouth. And then you also can get them to listen a little bit better. So I'm always brought in when there's highly technical people, CEOs, usually an engineer, and a business process mismatch.
Yes.
So the technical people will listen to me because I'm one of them, and the suits will listen to me because I'm smarter than them. That's what they think, and they're afraid of that. So we have to be very careful to negotiate that. And then you've got everyone's attention, and you can start to do some real work, and you can start to get them to trust talking to each other is going to be okay. And that's in consulting. It's really about facilitating the experts, which is not you, and finding the right answer. Sometimes they just need you to be in the room.
Yeah, and I love that because for most of you listening, you don't see your PhD in that way. Because again, you're surrounded by other PhDs. There's this person down the hall that has more publications than you. We're always thinking of the next level that we don't have yet because we're very driven people. But you have to realize how valuable your PhD is. And yeah, it's a rubber stamp in a sense because they see that degree and they're like, okay, instant credibility. But there's a lot that went into that, right? So don't discount everything that you've done. Remember your value as a PhD. We always talk about that. That is incredibly valuable, not just to technical people, but also to, as Crystal says, the suits in the room too. You have the ability to learn things very, very quickly. And you're right, that might intimidate some people, or it might make them have certain preconceptions of you that are incorrect. You just need to navigate that, but always realize that it is a strength. I think that's the key here.
And we're working with systems and process. In business, as a consultant, you work with systems and processes. As a biologist, what did I work with? Systems and processes.
Protocols, yeah.
Yeah, protocols. It's, and there's the added layer of the social component. I didn't work with an animal model, so I didn't have that in my PhD. So it's something that I'm I'm learning with the human animal model, as opposed to the mice that lived, down there. But one thing I'm really hoping that your audience will start to appreciate is that perceived value is everything. And as PhDs going out into the workforce and not staying in academia, we are the cockroaches. We are going to survive because the future of work is leading to automation. It's leading to people being replaced by robots and computers that can do that single thing better, faster, cheaper than they can. And the people that are going to survive that transition are able to solve complex problems and have theory of mind. And so they can shift and motivate large groups of people to a particular goal or direction.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, I used to talk a lot about 3 skills that'll be around, right, in 10 years or 20 years. And we just saw a lot of them on the Show Me the Data section from Crystal too. Problem solving, obviously, like decision making. You got to make the decision for the computer in advancement programming, right? Or you got to set up the ability for it to make certain types of decisions that you write. Not to get, again, too much into AI here, but decision making is huge, and that's tied to problem solving. And problem solving really is, there's this initiative component, this action taking component. Like the ability to initiate something, initiate yourself, large groups of people, powerful, important. And then oral communication. There's different theories on if oral communication, of course, maybe there'll be robots that can talk, but your ability to speak, it's such a powerful influencer. And right now, where are they at with that? They can't even really analyze like pitch or vocal tones very well in terms of robotics. It's still a very powerful thing. So speaking face to face to a person, very, very important. Or, almost face to face like we are now. Crystal, great stuff. I really appreciate you being on here. Where can we learn more about you and your work?
I'm on social media, so I'm at PollyCrystalHD because it's PhD, and I think that people are multifaceted humans, and we should sort of engage in the celebration of all of those many facets. So PollyCrystalHD on Twitter and on Instagram. So I'm usually on planes. You'll see usually a selfie when I'm on a plane and some stuff from work.
Fantastic. I think so. PollyCrystalHD. Can I find it right here? Is this it? Twitter?
That's me. Yep.
There you go. Fantastic. So you can check out PollyCrystal HD. Right, so it's Crystal's Twitter page as well as Instagram. We'll put those in the chat boxes. Crystal, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you so much for having me.
Talking to you. Cheers. Please thank Crystal for her time in the chat box here. If you are an associate and if you're watching us live streaming, please say thank you to her as well. Our next guest, who I see is on, I'm going to introduce him first, though. Special introduction. Haven't seen him in ages. Is Jack O'Sullivan. He completed his PhD in biochemistry and molecular biology at the University College Dublin. His career in sales and business development began with his role as a training and sales specialist in the nonprofit sector. There he transitioned to an area sales manager at Triple Red. He's worked with us on Team Cheeky, and now he's in a sales executive to training specialist role in business development executive as well. So this is another example of a PhD with a STEM background who has transitioned into a role that's required complex communication skills, training, support, sales skills, a lot of skills that at first, blush you would think that a PhD doesn't have. In addition to rock climbing, I didn't even know that, Jack. Jack's passions include connecting with people and getting his customers the right cutting-edge products to support their research goals. He is currently the sales manager for Stratec Scientific, one of the leading suppliers of antibodies and reagents in the UK. And before I bring him on, I want to show you his LinkedIn profile. Go connect with Jack. Fantastic person overall. Very engaging. Really excited to have him on. This is his LinkedIn profile, and you can connect with him here. Jack, how are you?
Hi, Isaiah. Well, firstly, how am I going to follow that?
Yeah,
Wow.
great.
Crystal made me want to be in her job. So
Yeah, it's great great interview. Where are you right now?
Yeah, so sorry about the terrible video quality and bad lighting, everything. It's lovely hotel room lighting. I'm in the wilds of Cambridgeshire at the moment. Yeah, so it's the perk of the job with sales. Sometimes you get to travel around. Sometimes it's a lot of fun, and how much traveling is really depends on what your territory is. But at the moment, yeah, I'm really out and about. So
In a
you will
cottage.
have to forgive me, the hotel room internet.
Cambridgeshire cottage somewhere. No, this is.
Cambridgeshire, in the middle of nowhere.
Well, thanks for making time. I wanted to jump right in with you, Jack, and talk about a skill that you have really mastered in the realm of communication, understanding other people's problems, and then coming up with solutions to those problems. How important has that been to getting hired in industry and your career development?
Yeah, I think we know that as PhDs we're good at troubleshooting. We say, oh yeah, I'm great at working through problems, but I don't think you really know. I don't think people understand that most people who aren't PhDs come across a problem and they go, oh, it's a problem, and they escalate it, right? Because in normal business, you escalate up. You go, oh, what do I do next person in the chain? Oh, I don't know. What do you do next person in the chain? And they don't know how to get in and get stuck in and really fix things. So what I notice with PhDs, and I've seen this because I've worked in sales teams with lots of people who maybe half PhDs and half not PhDs, and the PhDs always go, oh, when this occurs, I usually do this, 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 and this. So and the other salespeople go, oh, I normally just get stuck and call someone, right? So I think your creative thinking process, and I really resonating. I wrote some notes here because Crystal talks a lot about the creative, dynamic sort of way that PhDs are, and I thought really was amazing because I think that sales is and communication is just like that as well. It's all about, she said, like, if the technical people will listen and the suits will listen, that's exactly what sales is. Facilitating the experts and finding the right expert, the right answer, that's exactly what sales is. Sometimes people just need you to be in the room. That's exactly what sales is. I was really impressed because it is a very creative, troubleshooting. You like to really get stuck into the problems, solve people's problems. That's basically what sales is. I think people have this misconception. Sales is all about, going out, go buy this thing, when really it's actually about solving problems.
Yeah, and so a couple of great takeaways there, right? Again, problem solving. Think about it more as, the initiative and having the comfortableness with autonomy to take care and troubleshoot a problem on your own and just fix it. I think the other takeaway is that as a PhD, you can be seen as valuable, not just to technical people, but to other types of people. And even if it's not a pure sales position, all of the new positions that are coming out for PhDs that are very popular, whether it's technical, sales, support, liaison, we mentioned medical science liaison, application scientist, it's about bridging that communication gap, speaking nerd and normal person, sometimes we say it. So Jack, how do you approach speaking to a technical person, right, because you're bridging that gap? How do you approach speaking to a technical person differently than speaking to a non-technical, another salesperson or director or manager? What are some of the differences that you notice? I guess overall, right? There's always going to be, it's going to be different based on each individual, but what are some of the trends that you see?
The trends between technical, I'm prepared with detail. So a lot of a meeting happens before the meeting, right? So it's the same with your interview, right? A lot of your interview happens before your interview. You research a company. I research the person. I research what they're doing. I try and anticipate what kind of questions they're going to have. Technical will always be detailed. Technical will always want to get into the nitty-gritty and really start talking about those aspects. And then everyone else might have more general questions, well, how much is it going to cost? When can you get it to me? They might have more general, they might just buy something because they like me, right? They might just want to get an interest in me. The same actually goes for a technical person. So actually what you talk about all the time, I say is the key point, emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence brings you a lot of the way here. You can tell as you're speaking to a technical person, have I said something that has just got a red flag? You need to pay attention to that. And that kind of gets into another misconception people have about sales, which is that it's all for extroverts. Oh, extroverts have to go, to do sales, you got to be really extrovert. I know I'm an extrovert, guys. I know, I am. But not some of the best salespeople I have ever worked with ever are massive introverts. Are you a massive introvert?
Yeah, me too. And it really, because it just comes down to how you get your energy. If other people energize you, extrovert. If you're energized and you're not around people, introvert. But especially with technology today, you have to be able to communicate and solve problems online and in person, right? Yeah. And what I think Jack is doing a great job of is showing that you have all these transferable skills already. And we talk about noticing your audience, being sensitive to your audience, understanding them. Emotional intelligence, EQ, is like this buzzword that just means intelligence. the ability to use your focus and to put that focus on the right things. The other person, are they triggered by something that you said? Or are you just like paying attention to what you're saying and not focused on your audience at all? As PhDs, we can do that. We get in our own head, right? And then we just focus on our purpose, what we're trying to get across. We don't think about how our audience is responding. Just shift that focus, and you can do it because you're all intelligent people.
Yeah, and I'd love to ask Chad a question at this point. What do you think is the number one? I actually literally just did this with the sales team. I asked them, what do you think the number one trait of a salesperson is? Please put it in chat. No wrong answers, right? But there's totally a right answer.
And while you do that, let me tell you two things that Jack has done that maybe you didn't notice. One of the reasons he's an effective communicator. He has turned this conversation back on me and on the audience several times, right? Have you noticed that? Like, instead of just saying what to do or how you should prepare or his insights, he's asked me about myself 2 or 3 times, right? He's asked you to now give your ideas and what you are thinking. And this is crucial when you're communicating because you can it helps you understand what the other person's taking in. It also helps you tie in the other person and engage them both intellectually and emotionally in the conversation, which is what you want. So you can't just talk at people. You have to involve them, and this is something Jack does very well. So some answers are coming in, Jack. What do you think?
Well, Natalia's breaking my heart here. She said that the number one skill is pushiness, and it's another really bad misconception. And actually, I spend a lot of time with my sales team right now saying it's really important to read the signs when you need to back off, right? I think pushiness is every bad salesperson you've ever met. If you ever feel like someone's being pushy, it's a bad sign. That's someone without emotional intelligence. That's someone who's not really doing. Oh, Ben has the answer. Active listening. Thank you, Ben. That is exactly it. There was lots of really good answers. Chris, I like trust building, customer needs, problem solving. Yes, very important. Social skills. I don't think you need social skills sometimes. I tell you some stories about some salespeople who are excellent without social skills, but excellent follow-up, excellent technical skills. Natalia, don't worry, my heart is mended already. But yeah, active listening. Active listening is massive. This is why introverts can be salespeople, because the very best salesperson, one of the best salespeople I ever worked with, she just said nothing at me. But what happens when you say nothing?
People talk. They fill the space. They tell you their problems. What you're doing right now.
Exactly. You can't help but talk because you want to fill the space, right? So the active listening is and being introverted, they're all massive pros. What you should want to do if you want to be a salesperson is you have to do, someone said drive and motivation. It is important. You do actually have to want to be in sales. You want to have to sell a product. What helps me and what I've always done, and I think helps most PhDs, is I say, choose a product that you truly, truly believe in, a product or service or company. And as long as you really believe, you can push really hard for that thing. You can do what's needed and to make a sale because you know that this is right for your customer. You know this is the best thing. So I think that really helped me give the conviction to know that what I'm doing has purpose, because that's always been really important to me, to have purpose, to have impact. And that's why I left academic, because I felt like I couldn't make an impact. None of my stuff was being published well enough or going anywhere, right? And that is why I joined sales. Now, I sell things that if people didn't know, they wouldn't be able to do these experiments. If I didn't sell it to pharma, they wouldn't be able to make this happen, right? I feel like I make things happen now, and that's what I love about my job.
And the key here is that you're responsible for that. It's active. You find the meaning in what you do, right? You don't fake it, but you literally find things that are aligned with what you're doing. On the practical end is aligned to the reason why behind it, right? What you're doing can have an impact, and it can be in sales, it can be in a liaison position, it can be in an applications position, any communication position, and any position requires communication, which is all of them. So, Jack, really great insights. I appreciate you joining us from Cambridgeshire. It sounds like something out of Lord of the Rings.
It is probably right, Lord of the Rings. I didn't even know.
It's fantastic.
No problem. It's my pleasure, and I hope it makes people think, because Cheeky Scientist is what sort of helped me decide I wanted to be in sales. I don't know if I can tell a really quick story about my first sales.
Let's do it.
So, my very first interview for sales, the sales position was when I was just about to finish my postdoc. I didn't really know whether I wanted to do sales or not. I hadn't joined Cheeky Scientist, okay? And I'd gotten right to the final end. It was just me and one other candidate. And the person said to me, she said, if you do a great presentation tomorrow, you have got the job. And I went, yeah, right? I was like so pumped. And into this interview, and I flopped the presentation. I completely messed it up. I just said all the wrong things. I didn't go technical. I thought about it too much. I tried to go salesy or some other thing. I just didn't do what was really authentically me, and I didn't speak to the product. I just flubbed it, right? I got totally in my head, right? And I never forgot. And then I went on and then did like a training position, right? Because I had to like overdo it. I was like, I love presenting. I love doing that way. But I did that. And now, right? So I went into my interview for this job, final round. Who's sitting at the table? The same guy from that very first interview, I swear.
Wow.
Yeah, and I walked in and I already knew he was there because I'm a cheeky scientist, right? And I checked out and I've done my research. And I said, I remember you. You probably don't remember me, but I'll never forget you. And he said, what? I said, I did the worst presentation of my life in front of you. And I said, it's not going to be like that today. Do the presentation away.
Fantastic. Yeah.
So there you go. My point was that, guys, if you had a bad interview, if things have gone wrong, you can still succeed. We've all had bad days. We've all had bad interviews, but things can go 360, right? So just don't forget and keep working on what the association plan is. I mean, there was parts that I got stuck on, and then things moved very, very quickly. I got hired in 2 weeks once I started committing to the plan really properly, and so that can happen for you.
Fantastic. Thank you, Jack. Great takeaway.
Take care, guys.
And notice, please do me a favor and thank Jack in the chat box, of course, for in Zoom if you are an associate and on the live streams as well. Notice what Jack did very well is he didn't just tell, right? So he showed you how to have an engaging conversation while we were doing the interview. At the end there, he showed you how dramatizing things a little bit can be very helpful to making it engaging. Telling a story, right, which we talk a lot about the STAR method with interviewing, which is talk about the situation, the task, the action, the result. He just went through that when he was telling that story, right? He set it up. There was a problem from before. He didn't nail the interview, so the task at hand was to nail the interview the second time. The result was he nailed the interview the second time. Adding that, a little bit of that flair, telling a story, dramatizing it a little bit, not in the bad way that we hear about drama, but in a good way, can really make things engaging and is great when you're interviewing, especially with people who, like Crystal said, are a little bit more of the director types for the theater, a little bit less like the Caltech scientists. So please, again, thank Jack. Very, very appreciative to have him on. This takes us to the end of our public portion of our radio show. If you want to learn more about the Cheeky Scientist Association, go to PhDsGetHired.com. This is your very last chance to get our free show-up bonus for those of you that are watching publicly, which I took down, but we'll put in the chat box and it will be on the Facebook page as well. Maybe I can have Mary or Lisa send it to me real quick. The show-up bonus is 7 resume hacks. 7 resume hacks. Once we stop the live stream, you can no longer get it. Thank you, Mary. This is the link that you want. It is on the Facebook live stream. It is on the YouTube live stream. Go here, put in your name and email address, and you can download this only before the show ends. We're going to stop the live stream right now. So thank you all for joining us. Oh, one last thing. If you want to get updates as to when our radio show is happening, if you want to get the link sent to you once we go live, go to this page here. This is a new page that allows you to choose how you want to learn and how fast you want to learn. It's very simple. It's just cheekyscientist.com opt-in-new. And this is something new that we're doing because we have a lot of material that goes out. You can choose what kinds of materials you want to get. And I'm going to refresh the page here. So you can get radio show updates only, our blog updates, our best of transition articles, or these special job tips that I'll be sending out to everyone starting next week for those of you who want them. Or of course you can get them all if you want to learn very fast. Just go to this page, choose how you want to learn, and if you're getting updates you don't want anymore, just don't select that box. If you want to get updates you're not getting, select that box. So thank you everyone. Again, go to PhDsGetHired.com if you want to learn more about the association, and we'll see you next week. Very good. Stop. All right. We are now